Hello, my name is Janika Singh, and I'm here with Dr. Eugene Viscusi, who served as the ASRA president from 2019 to 2021. This interview is part of the activities surrounding the 100th anniversary of the founding of the first American Society of Regional Anesthesia in 1923 by Dr. Gaston Labat and colleagues. Although this organization is not related to the current day ASRA Pain Medicine, which was founded in 1975, it has been said that the current society would not have existed quite like it does without the work of Dr. Labat and the original ASRA. So, welcome, Dr. Viscusi. Um,
Thank you.
we we would like to go ahead and get started. So, the first question I have for you is what was the path of events that led to you becoming the president of ASRA Pain Medicine? And what obstacles did you have to overcome to serve? And what advantages did you have?
Uh, Fascinating questions because it really encompasses not just becoming president, but getting involved and becoming a member of the board. And I have to say, the quick answer is sheer persistence. Sheer persistence. And I often get a question from members: how do I get involved? How do I get on the board? How do I, get invited? And the answer is that you have to pitch in. You have to throw your name out there and say, I want to do X for you. I want to be on a committee, or I think I can help you with industry relations. So, a lot of what I did early on was work with industry to come to ASRA and help support the meeting, which was a very beneficial thing. So, what I say is persistence. Put yourself out there. Don't expect ASRA to necessarily come to you and invite you. And then once I found a place and moved into the board, getting to the executive committee, I would say I had a, if you will, a platform when I sort of ran against my competition that one was improving or increasing the presence of women in the society. And we can talk a little more about that later. And then the other was that we're not here for ourselves, we're here for our membership. And no matter what, the members come first. So I told this allegory, which I'll try to be very brief, about a ship leaving the old world to the new country. And it's laden with all the gold they could put on the boat and all the people they could fit. And everything is good as the ship is sailing across the Atlantic until there's a storm. And then the waters get rough, and the captain realizes that the boat is now too heavy. And he has to make a decision whether to throw over the gold or the people. And this is something I use this allegory with a lot of institutions that when times get bad, they throw the people overboard and they keep the gold instead of investing what they have in their members to improve the society or the church or the whatever. And I honestly think that telling that story might have tipped the tide that got me the presidential track. And little did I know that I would become ASRA's COVID president. I would say in the 100 years or 25 years, the the 2 years that I served may have been the most difficult era for any president because everything shut down. The finances shut down, the live meetings shut down. And probably the biggest challenge was convincing people that we could not throw over the people. We had to spend the gold, even if it meant digging into our endowment and perhaps putting the society at risk. I think that big challenge was convincing people that we had to go forward and support our members through that very difficult time.
Thank you so much for your leadership during the difficult time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
So what were the predominant needs or issues of the ASRA at that time? I know you mentioned the challenges with COVID and how
Yeah.
you also were promoting women.
So I think, prior to the sad events of COVID, we looked at the 2019 fall meeting, and I picked Andrea Nickel, now Chadwick, to be that chair. And one of the things that we really wanted to make a visible change is that we wanted talented women represented. And we made the pledge that every panel would have at least one female. And I think we actually had one all female panel. So it ended the manels. And we formed the Women's SIG, which I think was another milestone, along with the help of some other very, very powerful women in society. But I think that meeting was a turning point because it happened very naturally. It was not forced. No one actually said, wow, why are there so many women here? It actually just happened so naturally that it just became the standard without fanfare. And I'm really proud of that. And I have to give Andrea a lot of credit, along with some of the other women that really helped make it work. And then, of course, we thought it was going to be smooth sailing. I had Jamie Barada teed up to be my spring chair. And then that meeting never occurred due to COVID. And then the live meeting in fall in Las Vegas also did not happen. So we had one group. So I lost half of the live meetings. And those were really major setbacks for the society and for me from the standpoint of advancing an agenda, because the place where we come together are the annual meetings. That's where the camaraderie and the visible signs of change occur. And instead, we struggled. We struggled to keep contact with our members, and we made a sort of abrupt transition to a virtual world, and had, I would say, actually more engagement with members, albeit virtually. But we were able to maintain, and we put out some guidelines for management under COVID. And we kept the society going. We certainly didn't enrich our endowments, to say the least. And there was a lot of anxiety about that. But I think we served our members, and I'm really proud of that. And I would say the role of women is different as a consequence, and we've moved that forward, and it's here to stay.
Most certainly, and I can attest to that. Be part of the Rapid Sig and part of ASRA the past couple of years. Was the specialty of anesthesia ready to respond to what ASRA had to offer under your leadership? And did ASRA move the bar during your leadership?
Uh, I think, in spite of the lockdown, we did move the bar in a few compelling ways. So I would say we were the first anesthesiology meeting that made a major impact incorporating women. Some people may argue that, but I would say certainly we were way ahead of the pack. We also moved the bar in that we had the first live anesthesia meeting after COVID. And that was a tough one. I mean, we had to convince the board, but I worked very closely with Beverly Phillip, and we looked at the data. And it was not just an arbitrary decision. The meeting was in Disney, Orlando, and we were carefully following how Disney was managing their meetings, some that were larger than ours, and any incidents of COVID. And the answer was there was none. They actually had it down, and it looked like it was very safe, and it would have been a shame to cancel that meeting. So we actually had the first live meeting. And then from that, ASA followed, and some other societies followed. But I think, yes, we kind of opened that space and had the courage to say, we are going to do a live meeting. Uh, Other areas where I think we moved the bar um, is that during that period, we produced the perioperative buprenorphine standards. And we're really the first society to do that. We were able to get 5 societies to agree to that. And it did push the bar because I think a lot of our colleagues um, do not um, appreciate that they have a role outside the operating room, let alone in the care of patients with addiction. And the reality is, we have a huge potential impact to get patients into treatment when they're in the perioperative setting and save lives, bottom line. That came from a conversation that I had with Jerome Adams at the 2019 spring meeting at the beginning of my presidency, where he really challenged me to figure out how to bring anesthesiologists into this opioid crisis, because he, as an anesthesiologist, realized there was that role. So I'm particularly proud of that. Might be the single accomplishment that I think will stand and perhaps move the bar to get anesthesiologists to realize that they are perioperative physicians. Blocks may come or go. Interventional procedures will come and go. But if we start to find our role outside the doors of the operating room, I think that's where we're going to need to be. And it's coming very soon.
I certainly agree to that. Being outside of OR and increasing our presence in peri-op area is the way to go, and we have to be more present. Um, so thank you so much for sharing that. And you mentioned a couple of names. And who did you find most helpful to listen to as a president? And then how did you deal with prevailing assumptions and biases and blind spots during your presidency?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with the end of your question to say nobody can have all the answers. And you may know your area, but there's lots of areas you don't know. But you have to surround yourself with people who do, and you have to trust those people and get all those opinions. And I think inherently we all see the world from our perspective. But if you talk to enough people um, who are successful and whom you respect, that's the answer to your biases. Um, so, I, who were really important? Well, I think Beverly Phillip was tremendously helpful, and we supported each other because we were both going through uncharted territories during COVID. So I really have to thank her, and we are great friends as a consequence. Um, I would have to say Angie Stengel, our executive director, who supported me, and we supported the society together. And she just has vast knowledge and really deserves a lot of credit for ASRA's success, not just during my term, but period, for all that she brings to the society. Um, Oscar de Leon, extreme wisdom. He was the voice of reason and balance. Often when I was in the how should I do this or what should I do? The board is a very diverse group with opinions all over the place, but you have to hear them to understand what your members are thinking. My wife probably was one of the most important sources of reason, and we spent a lot of time together during the lockdown. And she had a very practical and I think sensible approach to what was going on. And then my program chairs were really very important. Andrea, whom I already discussed, was really incredibly helpful. Jamie Barada, who I work with, who had uh, the sorrow of probably the only completely canceled meeting in ASRA's history. So then she became co-chair with Magna to the fall meeting, but that we shared a lot of thoughts, and Magda was incredibly helpful. And then Nabil Al-Kasabani, who was the spring meeting 21 meeting chair. But the list is endless. They're my real go-to people.
Well, thank you for sharing. What changes in thinking and practice or perspective did you foster?
So I'm going to just sort of repeat some of the things I said, and I think from the viewpoint of the society, I think the recognition of women, the Trailblazers Award, the SIG, um, and just sort of that mandate that we naturally balance the people who participate in the meeting. That might be, if I had to pick a legacy for the society, I think that's one that I would pick. But we did it in such a non-fanfare manner that I almost hope that people don't say that was Viscusi's doing. I want it to be like it was a natural transition and no one questions it now. It wasn't an agenda. It was just the right thing. And then from the viewpoint of the specialty, I think bringing us out of this narrow view that we're anesthesiologists in the operating room. Not that everybody feels that way, but I think it's so important for us to realize we are the perioperative physicians, and our specialty is going to change a lot in the very near future. And who better to look at the perioperative process than anesthesiologists, because pain is a big factor. And then you think the transitional pain service, chronic pain, the pain physician in the office is going to be a part of that. So there's a continuity that our specialty has that we have not maximized, broadcasted, and I hope that that door is open now. I think our role in addiction and opioid use disorder is going to be one thing that we can really champion in hospitals and healthcare systems. I think that's enough.
That's definitely huge, huge impact. All of those, the impact of advancing women in the society and advancing the role of anesthesiologist as a periop physician, and your guidelines on buprenorphine. Those are definitely huge, huge
Yeah.
impact.
And I have to, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Lynn Cohan, who I appointed to chair that multi-society group and who has just done amazing things with the opioid use disorder document, but also so many things, where I would just need somebody and say, Lynn, can you do this? And she always did. She was one of my great support persons. And now she is on the board.
We all love them.
We love Lynn.
So, what was the attitude of your department or the group that you were with when you served on the board and then became the president?
So I would say I always had support. I can't remember that the department ever did not grant my time requests or give me the opportunity to talk about it. But did they completely capitalize on my presidency? I don't know. I think COVID was just so disruptive that it was that one shot in my career and one opportunity for Jefferson, and it went. I mean, it was the nature of the times. So my disappointment is that there's a lot that didn't happen because of COVID, and 2 years goes very quickly.
So, what words would you choose to define ASRA?
Well,
Family, lifelong friends.
yeah, without question, it's the friendships that develop. I mean, there are people I met because of ASRA that I would never, ever have had those relationships. And it's been a long, fun, fruitful life and career uh, because it gives you a support system outside your department, national, internationally. I just can't say enough for that component. I'd say family. Family is the biggest word when I think about ASRA.
Well, thank you so much for all you've done for the society and all you've done to promote women in the society, and and for your guidance in the peri-op realm. So we're really thankful to you.
Thank you so much.